dangerous. More dangerous and, for some inexplicable reason, more interesting. She was here to do the most important interview of her very short career as a journalist, and she could not concentrate. She just wanted to sit there and stare at Fontana, maybe forever. Maybe she was coming down with the flu or something. Now that she thought about it, she definitely felt a little feverish. The day had not started out well in spite of the promise of the exclusive with Fontana. For starters, she'd endured a sleepless night, unable to escape the creepy feeling that someone, somewhere, was watching. She knew it was a totally irrational sensation, but that didn't make any difference. Her intuition did not respond to logical argument. Elvis had seemed restless as well, although that was probably because he had picked up on her unease. He was very sensitive to her moods. Countless times she had risen from the rumpled bed and gone to the window. Elvis had followed every time, hopping up onto the sill. Together they had surveyed the narrow street 2 floors below, but there had been very little to see. That was hardly surprising, of course. It was early fall, and the fog was thick in the quarter. The locals referred to the season as the Big Gray, for a very good reason. The seemingly endless mist that blanketed the city at this time of year was legendary. On the rare occasions when the fog lightened temporarily, rain moved in to take its place. The lack of sleep had definitely affected her edge this morning, but the real disaster had occurred en route from her office to Guild headquarters. She had taken a taxi because parking spaces were notoriously hard to find in the quarter in the vicinity of the Guild offices. The driver had let her out on the side of the street opposite the entrance of the colonial-era building. She never saw the big oscillator 600 bearing down on her in the heavy fog. It was only her intuition and Elvis's anxious chortling that had caused her to leap back onto the curb in the nick of time. The close call had left her already sleep-deprived senses badly jangled. The last straw had been walking into Fontana's office a short time later and discovering that the subject of her interview had the power to raise the hair on the nape of her neck. "Elvis isn't a pet," she said, pulling herself together with an effort. "He's a companion. Now, if you don't mind, I have another question regarding your plans for the Crystal City Guild." Fontana looked amused. "You seem to be obsessed with the future of this organization." "The guilds wield enormous power in all of the city-states. That was especially true here in Crystal, under your predecessor's administration. Naturally, my readers are anxious to know what to expect now that there is a new chief." Fontana shrugged. "The guilds are respected, well-established institutions. They have always played active roles in the political and social affairs of their communities. I see no reason for that to change." In Sierra's opinion, the guilds were all about power, and there was certainly a lot of it here in Fontana's office, not just the political and social kind, but also the sort produced by raw psi energy. Some of that was coming from Fontana himself, but the room also shimmered faintly with energy. In fact, there was so much psi swirling in the atmosphere she knew there had to be a secret entrance to the ancient underground tunnels somewhere nearby. Here in the old quarter there were reputed to be hundreds of old holes in the wall, as they were called. She straightened a little in her chair. She had come here for answers, and she intended to get them. "I'll allow that the guilds are well-established institutions," she said briskly. "But don't you think it's going a bit too far to say that they are respected? I'm sure you're well aware that all of the organizations have serious problems when it comes to public relations." Elvis chose that moment to leave the spotlight. He drifted across the desk, cape fluttering behind him, and came to a halt in front of Fontana's coffee cup. "Any large corporation has a few public relations issues," Fontana said. He watched Elvis with a mildly wary expression. "Is the bunny house broken?" Dust bunnies are naturally very clean, and the guilds are...